two ways to become a judge. One is you're appointed by the governor, but in order to be appointed by the governor, you have to go through a commission by the state of California. It's called the Jenny Commission. What they do is they go through and evaluate the judges just like our committee does. So the San Diego County Bar, we designed a parent committee that deals with judges who are candidates who are running for an open seat. And so the second way a person becomes a judge is to run for an open seat. And the way that happens is a judge who's sitting on the bench may decide he wants to retire or she wants to retire, and the term ends. And so once the term ends, the seat becomes open, or a candidate can challenge a judge. And we've had that happen since I've been chair many, many times where a judge has been challenged by another attorney. And so this year, what's unique about this year, there's no judges have been challenged, but there's 4 open seats. And that's very important. 4 open seats in San Diego County. And so our job, my committee, consists of 21 members of the legal community. And we're very diverse. We have people from various different organizations. And our job is to ensure that we evaluate everyone the same way. My job as chair of the committee is to ensure that all the procedures are followed. Because once we make our evaluations, I appear before the county bar and I give them our evaluations. The county bar either says yes or no. They ask me, have the procedures been followed? And so my job is to make sure the procedures are followed. And so what happens when a candidate runs for an open seat, what they do is they submit a confidential personal data questionnaire. We review that data. It contains information about the candidate. We ask them to give us names of references, individuals, their background, training, experience. And as Justice McConnell stated, they have to have 10 years minimum experience in being a lawyer. And so that's the first criteria we look at. Second, once they submit the PDQs, what I do is I assign committee members. And this year we have 5 different subcommittees. And so each subcommittee is evaluating candidates from different seats. I do not have a subcommittee evaluating candidates from the same seat. And the reason I do that is because I don't want them to compare one candidate to another. Rather, we're evaluating the candidate based upon that candidate's merits. And so what happens is the county bar, we have almost 14,000 members. We disseminate what we call confidential questionnaires. And within that questionnaire, there's categories. The categories we rely upon for the basis of evaluation are bias and tolerance, caseload management, compassion, understanding, courtesy and patience, decisiveness, fairness and objectivity, integrity and honesty, intellect and ability, judgment and common sense, judicial temperament, knowledge of the law, professional reputation, trial experience, work ethic, writing and research skills, and any other factor that we believe may affect the candidate's ability to serve. But the things we do not consider race, gender, sexual orientation, religion, disability, or political affiliation. And so we've had it happen in the past where someone gets a rating that they don't like, and they say, well, they consider my political affiliation my religion. And I say, we look to the rules. We do not consider that. That's not one of our criteria. And so for the evaluation, we have 4 levels for the evaluation. And we changed that 4 years ago. And to this 4 categories: exceptionally qualified. That's the highest standard. They have exceptional ability. And then we have well qualified, where they have superior knowledge, training, and experience. Then we have qualified, lacking qualification. And so each of these levels are very important to the public. And so once we get the confidential questionnaires, the subcommittee will contact those individuals who submit the questionnaires and get feedback from them, the positive, the negative. And then after we receive this information, the subcommittee chair sends a letter to the candidate, and we request an interview of that candidate. And that candidate shows up to the interview. But before the candidate goes up to the interview, we give them the negative feedback. We tell them, here's what they're saying about you. People say you lack compassion. They say you lack judicial temperament, that you're going to be a terrible judge. And so they take that into consideration. We ask them, the subcommittee asks them questions. What is it about this statement? You know, someone says that you engage in this behavior. How do you respond to that? And so the subcommittee will evaluate the candidate, the demeanor of the candidate, which is very important. As you know, we've seen it this last year when Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court was up, and we looked at their demeanor. How important is demeanor? It's very important. And so we take that as part of the evaluation process. And so after the subcommittee does the interview of the candidate, reviews all the confidential questionnaires and introduce all the different individuals that are involved, then they submit a report to the full committee. The full committee will meet, we'll discuss all the different aspects of the evaluation, and then we start voting on the different levels of our candidates. And then we come to a conclusion, and then we submit the information to the county bar, and they either agree thumbs up or thumbs down. In the 14 years I've been doing it, it's always been thumbs up, because I make sure that the process is followed, because it's an objective process. And it's very important, and what we discovered in the last few times that we've attended these forums is we are not doing a good job of disseminating information to the public. And it's very important that the public understands that we, the county bar, engage in an objective process in evaluating the judges, the candidates, because we're well aware that our whole purpose is to provide the public with information so you can make an informed decision. Without that information, if our evaluation is not objective, and it's not based upon merits, and it's not an evaluative process, then the evaluation means nothing. And so I make sure that the process is fully followed, and that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So when this evaluation comes up, the public can rely upon that evaluation in voting. Because we found out in our forums that people didn't know about our evaluations. And so based upon that information, I have more information to give the county bar to say, listen, we need to spend more money, we need to spend more time to educate the public. Because we realize from the top of the ballot, from the president down to the Superior Court judge, there's probably a 40 to 50% drop in the ballot. That means 40 to 50% of the people who voted for the president don't vote for the judges. And realize that the judges make very important decisions that can affect our daily lives. You know, from the trial court level to the appellate court level to the California Supreme Court. So it's important that we not only have just qualified judges, that we have judges that are well qualified, exceptionally qualified, in order to hear our cases. Otherwise, what do we have? We have nothing. That form of that branch of the government becomes just a rubber stamp. And the people who go to court as jurors, and you see the process, you say, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Well, our job is to make sure that we provide information to the public so they make an informed decision about whether a judge is qualified or lacking qualifications. And it's happened before, where 6 years ago, or 8 years ago, a judge was elected who we rated lacking qualification. And we realized at that point in time that we did a poor job of disseminating information to the public to inform you what was going on. Because our job is, just like everyone, we want judges that are qualified at minimum to be on the bench. And we do a great job of doing the evaluation, but we do a terrible job about disseminating information. And so these forums right here help us a lot by you coming here, because you can understand our process and procedure, and you can tell people with confidence that the evaluations of the County Bar Association are done with, they're thorough, they're complete, and they're accurate. And we can rely upon that information to make an informed decision. And so we will have our evaluations submitted to the board on February 10th. On February 11th or 12th, then they will become public. What happens is after the board gives its decision, approves it, then I notify the candidates of their evaluation, and then I give the okay to publish that information. So it'll probably be the 12th or 13th of February. But this year, since the election cycle changed, my poor committee, they've been working nonstop since the end of December to get all our work done, because we have to get all the work done by the end of January. So we've had like 5-6 weeks to evaluate 10 candidates. But before we started the process, I discussed this with all the subcommittee members, and I let them know, you have a way out. You don't have to do this. You're going to be working hard for 6 weeks. And this is all volunteer work, I have you know. And so they all agreed and they all bought into it and said, no, we want to do it. And the reason they want to do it, and it's amazing to watch these individuals. They're so well organized, well prepared, is because they really believe that our job is to perform a public service for each of you. So when you go to that ballot, you can have some confidence that the person that you're voting for has been vetted, just like the State Bar of California vets the judges for the governor, then we do the same thing. And we make sure that the process is followed. And so when you look at that ballot and you tell friends, you can refer them to our evaluation and say, they did their job. They made sure that they're giving us information so we can make an informed decision. And so it's rare that you have that. When you look at other races for governor, city council, you don't have anyone evaluating them. It's partisan. Here, it's a nonpartisan election. And so we want to make sure that the playing field is level for everyone, and that when we do our job, it's based upon objective criteria that we've discussed. And we want to make sure now to get the word out. And so I implore each of you to look at our evaluations and send those evaluations to friends of yours and get them to vote. So we can increase that number of people who actually vote to a higher number, and eventually, hopefully, it'll be the highest number, just like people voting for the president, because people have to remember, it's a very important position. These individuals are making decisions on a daily basis that can affect your life. And you don't want someone who makes a daily decision that's lacking qualification. We don't. It makes it very, very hard to have faith or trust in the courts. And that's what happens. We lose faith and trust in the courts. And our job is to ensure that this does not happen, that we have an objective criteria, that we provide information to the citizens of California, so you have information at your fingertips, and you can vote.
How do we get the results of your evaluation?
So the results of the evaluation, they're going to be published in the newspaper and the San Diego Tribune, and then also they're going to be disseminated to different organizations, such as this organization, the League of Women Voters, Voters Edge, all the different organizations that we appear before of, we're getting more and more information. And so there's
On your website.
on the website, it'll be the County Bar website. And so we're going to, I always ask this question now, what suggestions do you have to help us disseminate the information to members of your family and friends and relatives? What can we do to help you? Go ahead,
I
please.
have a question. So do the evaluations go out to the regional bar associations or just to the San Diego County Bar Association?
Just in San Diego County, all the attorneys in San Diego County.
Well, I belong to North County. I don't belong to San Diego County.
Yeah, yes, you do.
You should get it. You should get it.
So you send it to the regional bar associations too?
Correct.
Okay,
We
that
sent
was my
the
question.
regional, this year I made sure there's so many different specialty bar associations. There's the Lawyers Club, there's the Filipino Lawyers, the Earl B. Gilliam, the LBGT Lawyers, Tom Homan, La Raza Lawyers, North County Bar, East County Bar, South County Bar. So we're sending to all those people. So we know at least 14,000 people are going to have that information, right? And their spouses. That's 28,000, right? And every single attorney, I guarantee it, they're asked at least 5 to 10 times, who should I vote for? And what we tell them, you don't need to tell people to vote for. Point them to the right information. Point them to the information as far as what you can rely upon to make an informed decision. And so now we have more people here, and so we'll make sure that the League of Women Voters gets the evaluations, and they'll disseminate it to you. And if you disseminate it to 5 people, and those 5 people disseminate to 5 people, you have the roll of 5s. 5, 5, 5, 5. Eventually, 5 is going to turn to 250,000 people, right? And so that's why we say the rule of 5s. Start with 5, tell the person, send it to 5. Then send to 5. Yes, sir.
Are there constraints that prevent you from putting much information in the voter's sample ballot? You know, the pamphlet that comes with voters along with their sample ballot that gives the background on everything from bond issues to political candidates to heads of the school boards to all kinds of things that are going to be voted on.
Yes, what normally happens in the voter guide, they submit their ballot statement,
Yeah.
and the ballot statement indicates essentially what we call a self-serving statement about how good they are.
Right.
And so that's what, I ran for judge in 2002 and I wasn't elected, and that's one of the reasons they had me become chair of this, because I was in the committee before. And I realized that it's a very important process. And so I know what works, what doesn't work, and I know what people need to have at their fingertips to make an informed decision, right? Because a lot of times people vote based upon name recognition.
Yeah.
And they look at, well, my name's Alvin Gomez. When I was running for judge, they said, well, your name is, you shouldn't use that name. You should use Alvin, what's your middle name? Mark. So they say run as Alvin Mark Gomez,
Okay.
because it's more neutral.
Okay, but
So-
for issues that have a financial impact, there's generally an impartial evaluation done of those issues, and there's a statement about the potential impact or non-impact. And I'm just wondering if the Bar Association could provide a simple statement regarding judges that are running for election.
In the ballot, we can't, because it's too late to do it, but what we do is, with our evaluations, we put a definition of each of the the criteria that we use,
Right.
the 21 factors, and we set forth a definition as what is exceptionally qualified, well qualified, qualified, qualified. And with that information, you should be able to distinguish between.
Okay. So you do give them a grade, it's a qualitative grade.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's a qualitative. We changed it a few years back to a numerical system, and so it's qualitative,
Yeah.
and it's based upon actual data. We talked to many people, hundreds of people, with regard to each candidate, because they they give us 10 to 20 names, and then we ask those people, what other people we know, and it's an ongoing process. My committee, I figured out the hours, it's thousands of hours of time, professional time that we spent doing the evaluation process. And trust me, my committee spends a lot of time, and they're very vocal, they're very hands-on, because we realize the importance of it. But the questions you ask are very good and important questions, and it's information that we need to get out more to educate each of you. So once you get this information, you can say, well, here's the criteria they rely upon, here's the evaluations, and here's the definitions of each of the 4 levels of qualification. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. What happens when we have 2 candidates and they're both exceptionally well qualified? Then how do we as voters, I had that happen several times in the last election, and I was thinking, does it matter which one I vote for, because they're both exceptionally well qualified? But there may be other criteria that I would, if I knew, I could have
And so
applied.
I think what you look at that, and to me it's amazing when we get 2 exceptionally well qualified candidates, because that lets us know who's ever is elected we're gonna have a good judge on the bench. And so that's a good thing. And so what you can do is each of the candidates, nowadays they have websites. And so you can look at their websites and you can compare what they say on the websites. Because the websites tell a lot. Because after the evaluations, they may put something in there after the evaluations that says something that they should put in there. Because every candidate who runs for a judge, they're subject to the same rules of judicial conduct and ethics as a sitting judge. They sign a document saying, I will abide by the rules and the ethics of a sitting judge. And so it's happened where 6 years ago, when the judge was elected, was lacking qualification, he made some statements that came back to haunt them because he was evaluated by the Judicial Council, and they found that there was misstatements made. And so be careful. And so when you look at the qualifications, you look at the evaluations that we give, look at their website, and to see the distinguishing points between the 2. You know, some people may prefer someone in law enforcement versus someone who's private practice. Someone may look at someone saying, well, he's endorsed by this, he or she's endorsed by this particular person, and I don't like that person. You know, so there's different things, because within their website, they provide a lot of information. And it's surprising information that's provided. It always astonishes me, because my subcommittee, one of the first things we do is what do? We look at their website. And people post videos, statements about certain things. And one of the things you can't do when you're running for office, you cannot give an opinion or a statement as to how you will rule in the case. Can't do that. And people do that. And so that will tell you something when you look at the evaluation process. Yes, ma'am?
Out of 11 criteria seems to be an awful lot. Are there 3 that are main, or?
You know, the way we have it is the criteria are weighted, and so we put more weight on certain criteria such as fairness, objectivity, integrity, honesty, decisiveness, judgment, common sense, judicial temperament, knowledge of the law, professional reputation, trial experience, intellect and ability, bias and tolerance. And we put less weight on compassion, understanding, work ethic, courtesy, caseload management, writing research skills. So we've gone through that over the years. We've We looked at other organizations, we looked at the state, and we tried to figure out what's, and listening to people, what's the most important qualities that you want in a judge? And so we weighted a little more. And this, we only started this, 4 years ago? Because at one point we just said qualified or lacking qualifications. And that system didn't work. We got so much negative comments about that because it didn't help anyone. It didn't help distinguish between two people. And so now that we have the 4 categories, it provides some more information. Is it a perfect system? No, but it's the best system that we were able to come up with. And I think it's, over the years, we've gotten it right. Every single time, we've gotten it right. And it works. You know, one year, must have been 12 years ago, we had a judge running for office, and we came back and we rated that judge lacking qualification. The judges on the bench were mad. They were so upset with us. And we said, you know, I said, we made a decision, we stick by it. A week later, she was charged by the Judicial Council for violations, and she was removed from the bench. And so after that, they said, you guys do a great job. I said, of course we do, but we did it right. And it happens. Our job is to be objective. And we don't want candidates, because as a sitting judge, and I've interviewed a lot of sitting judges who are challenged, and one of the things they always tell me is I've learned from the process. I've learned that I think I'm conveying a certain message as an actor, but the observer's receiving a different message. And they've learned from that. So every judge who's been challenged, they come up and they tell me, you know, we appreciate the process. And they've learned from it. And so that's important. There's nothing wrong with constructive criticism, because no one's perfect. We all need to do things different. We have bad days. During that bad days, something may have happened, and we may have acted inappropriately. But you learn from that and say, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to make that happen again. And so when judges are challenged, it does impact them. And it's, to me, it's positive. And I've seen it happen over and over, but it's a good process. Any further questions? Yes, ma'am.
So it sounds like from this discussion is that if we see the names of the judges on the ballot,
Yes.
they may not all be overqualified.
Exactly.
So if that is the case, why is their name still on the ballot?
Because when you run for judicial office, the requirement is that you have 10 years experience.
Yes.
You either pay the filing fee or you get X number of signatures, and you meet the qualifications to be on the ballot. There's no minimum qualification other than age or 10 years experience to be on the ballot. That's the unfortunate reality.
So that's a very low bar
It-
to be on the ballot.
That's why we go through this process, because some people shouldn't be on there. But that's not our decision. Our decision is to evaluate them and give an objective evaluation. But your point is well taken. You know, no one knows how they're on the ballot. But how do they get on the ballot?
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't come here tonight, I would have thought that the names that is on the ballot means that they would have already gone through qualification screening at least.
No, there's nothing like that.
Can I say something about that? Because for the Superior Court candidates who are running, who have not been a judge before, the only evaluation process that they go through is the one that Mr. Gomez and his committee spend a lot of time doing. But for judges who are appointed by the governor, they have been through an evaluation process done by the state bar that's similar to what Mr. Gomez does. The Judicial Nominees Evaluation Commission sends out questionnaires to hundreds and hundreds of people. Some of them are people that were named by the applicant for judicial position, and some of them were people who are just in the community that they think should be asked. So when a governor appoints a judge, the governor has already received an evaluation that the person is exceptionally well qualified or well qualified. They almost never appoint anyone who is less than well qualified. And so at least that person who's been appointed by the governor has been through a screening process. And then they may be challenged for election, or they're on a ballot for retention every 4 years. But the ones who are just running, who've never been a judge before, the only screening process they go through is through the County Bar Association.
Yes, ma'am.
I have another question for
Yes.
Judge McConnell. the retention thing sort of is challenging for me because, let's say someone has been 20 years on the Superior Court or the Appellate Court. You're in your fifth or sixth retention phase. Your life has changed, things have changed, and what has changed in the evaluation for you?
Well, the only thing that you can say when somebody's been on the bench for a really long time, do you do evaluations on retention elections?
No.
Okay, so the only thing you can say is this. For people like me who've been on the bench forever, you can read my opinions. They're great reading, trust me, they're all great reading.
Public record.
They're public record. You can watch oral argument. I think it's on the video. You can watch our oral argument is live streamed, believe it or not, on, so you can watch it on the computer and it's all stored, so you can watch it stored. And the same goes for the California Supreme Court. For the California Supreme Court, they have live streamed and they store it. Each of us who's on the appellate or Supreme Court, we have bios. Some of us list more awards than we can think of, you know, and so you can see what our professional reputation is. Some of us also put our name on Voter's Edge when we're on the ballot, and I encourage judges to do that because the League of Women Voters is a good forum for people looking for information. So those are just some of the ways you can find information about appellate judges.
And following up on that, okay, you said about half of the people drop off between the top of the ticket till the judges. So, pick a number, 100,000 people vote, have an opportunity to vote for retention, and some of them vote retain, and some of them don't.
All you need is
50.
one more than 50%.
But then what happens if you don't get 50?
Then you're not a
You're
judge
not,
anymore.
you're not.
So somebody else has to be appointed.
Then the governor makes an appointment.
Like, for instance, you mentioned a good point, like in a few races, there's 3 candidates. And so for the primary election, that person has to get 50 plus 1 vote. If there's not 50.1 vote, then it's gonna go off to a runoff in November between the 2 highest percentage vote getters. And so so this could be even more important because there's gonna be a few runoffs probably, just based upon numbers and math. And so what's good is it'll give us more of an opportunity for those candidates who are in the top 2, we're gonna be able to give more information and meet with more groups, because we'll have more time, we have from March until November.
So you'll do another evaluation.
No, we won't do another evaluation, but we can, the evaluation can be, if there's new information that comes in of those 2 candidates who are on the runoff, if new information comes in that we believe will affect their candidacy and their evaluation, we can reevaluate and reopen. So that door is open, it's not shut. And so, like I say, and we tell the candidates, you're obligated to follow the judicial ethics and canons as a judge. Because if you don't, and you put something in the information and you're in the runoff, and we find out after, we can reevaluate you and we consider that information. And it could have an impact on the evaluation process. And so that's one of the things we have to do is we have them sign a pledge when they run for judge. And so, like I said, come March 5th, we're gonna see what's gonna happen. And if there's a runoff, then we'll probably start appearing in more different groups because it's gonna be a runoff election. And we wanna be able to disseminate the information about those candidates in each race, and what's gonna happen. Yes, ma'am.
What happens if if enough voters vote not to retain a particular judge? Does the governor have a list already so he can appoint somebody right away, or is there a vacancy for months and months, or?
Well, you're talking about appellate court and Supreme Court, if a judge loses a retention election, some of you in this room may recall when Rose Bird and 2 other Supreme Court justices lost their retention election. They weren't recalled, they lost a retention election. There was a very big campaign against them. And And that's why we want informed voters, because we want everybody to know the pros and the cons of various people who are on the ballot. The governor appointed the people to fill their seats. Their terms expired at the end of the year, and it did take time. It takes time. Those seats are important seats. A governor doesn't always have a ready supply of backups. And for example, in my court, we've had a vacancy since August 30th, and there are candidates being evaluated right now by the state bar, but we've been working with a vacancy since August 30th, and we're eager to get that position filled. So it takes time because they're important positions, and the governor has to have them properly evaluated.
And last year, there was a vacancy on the California Supreme Court for
A year.
a year.
A year, yeah.
So they were down a Supreme Court judge because the governor, he was vetting through the process because it's a very important position.
I don't think he'd have a stable of qualified
it-
people and then he can just kind of.
No, it's a very cumbersome process. They go through the evaluation process and it takes time. There's a lot of vetting that goes on. There's personal interviews that happen.
I understand.
It's more cumbersome than people realize because they're very important positions. And remember, the governors normally don't appoint anyone who's less than well qualified. And so there's a lot of factors to consider and diversity issues that you want to consider, gender issues. They consider all those factors to make sure that the bench is more diverse. Yes, sir.
On judges' websites, do they steer away from listing anything about